Now going to question number 12, we always start with the prompt. Which finding from the study would weaken the claim made by people who favor the traditional view of voter behavior? So be careful here because we're almost looking for the wrong answer. We're looking for the one that weakens the claim, not the one that supports the claim like we normally have to look for. So let's go ahead and start reading. Political scientists who favor the traditional view of voter behavior claim that voting in an election does not change a voter's attitude toward the candidates in that election. So that right there is the traditional view that was being asked about, the idea that voting in an election doesn't change a voter's attitude toward the candidates. So now continuing onward, focusing on each U.S. presidential election from this year to this year, these researchers tested this claim by distinguishing between subjects who had just become old enough to vote and otherwise similar subjects who were slightly too young to vote and therefore didn't vote. The researchers compared the attitudes of the groups of subjects toward the winning candidates 2 years after the election. So now we're looking to weaken the claim. Whenever you have these kind of double negatives, it helps to jot down what you're looking for. So what we're looking for is the idea that people who voted in the election did change their behavior, because the traditional view was the one that said that if you vote in the election, it does not change your behavior. And we're weakening that. We're supposed to go against that. So once again, we're looking for evidence that people who voted did actually change their view. So let's start looking at the answer choices. A says subjects' attitude toward the winning candidate 2 years after the election were strongly predicted by their general political orientation, regardless of whether the subjects were old enough to vote. That would say that they don't change their view. It was still predicted by their general political orientation as opposed to being changed by whether they voted or not. So we can get rid of A. B, subjects who were not old enough to vote in the election held more positive attitudes toward the winning candidate 2 years later than they held at the time of the election. Maybe we can get rid of this one because what we're looking for is the people who did vote, not the people who did not vote, those who were not old enough to vote. So we can get rid of B. Answer choice C, subjects who voted in the election held significantly more polarized attitudes toward the winning candidate 2 years later than did subjects who did not vote, who were not old enough to vote. So that matches what we jotted down here, which is that people who voted did change their views. That's pretty good. And D, 2 years after the election, subjects who voted and subjects who did not vote, who were not old enough to vote, were both more likely to express negative attitudes. So here we're grouping together those who voted and those who didn't vote, which is not what we're looking for. We were looking for the idea that those who voted were different because they would change their behaviors. So lumping the two groups together isn't really in line with what we're looking for. So the answer here is C.